Hi, this is my This Is Me final video project, and I'm really excited to be doing this project because overall this has been an incredible class for me, and I have learned so much, and it is so relevant to my future career, hopefully in human resources or just working with people and managing people. So overall, there's been a good amount of work, but each assignment has been incredibly valuable for me. So in this video, I'm just going to go over 5 findings of my personal assessments that I did in the textbook, and I'm going to reflect on 5 concepts that I've learned in this class, and then I'm going to provide 6 concepts and strategies or ideas that I'm going to be able to apply to my personal and professional life that I've learned in this class. And throughout, to keep it interesting, I am going to be showing you pictures of just my life, people in my life, my family, and of course in the background I've got my fur daughter. She is fast asleep, but I will probably wake the sleeping baby for the sake of this video eventually, probably before the video's over. Okay, so we'll get started. So to start, I'm going to talk about the 5 findings in my personal assessments. So the first one that I found interesting was my Chapter 1 assessment, and I was actually really shocked to see how high of a score I got in that assessment, and it showed me how strong of an emotional connection I have to social media and how big of a role it played in the relationships that I believed that I had with so many people. And at the end of that assessment, the textbook challenges us to consider what life would be like without social media, and I actually chose to find out firsthand by deleting the most used social media app that I have, which is Instagram. So I deleted it for about 7 weeks, and I was very interested in my findings. I actually was surprised to find that when I deleted the app, I actually felt lonely, but in a genuine way. It was a little bit weird. I felt lonely because I lost the sense of false community from Instagram, but because I used to interpret likes from strangers and likes from acquaintances as genuine interactions, and I almost still felt in touch with certain people that I learned that I actually don't really care about what's going on in their life. So losing Instagram taught me who is in my life because they care about me and who is just a silhouette in my reality. And I realized that the reason I was feeling lonely is because Gainesville's empty during the summer and I'm here. It wasn't because I don't have friends. So it was sort of like a fulfilling loneliness that I was feeling, and by emptying out my heart of the false friends that aren't actually a piece of who I am, I actually have enjoyed the feeling of loneliness. So the next assessment that I took, or that I'm going to reflect on, is the Chapter 4 assessment, and that is where I learned that I'm actually a lot more empathetic than I originally would have thought, and it ended up making a lot of sense to me because I do constantly feel the stress and anxieties of others, and I get worked up very easily about problems that are not my own. So a lot of times if someone comes to me for a problem or because they're depressed about something, I've learned that I wear a lot of that stress myself. So something that I'm going to have to learn to work on is detaching from other people's problems so that I can better help them and then help myself at the same time so I don't get overwhelmed. So the third finding from my assessments was interestingly, I scored a 50 on the Chapter 6 assessment, which meant that I'm above average with my use of nonverbal communication. And that actually made a lot of sense to me because I have realized that when I'm angry or upset, I tend to use nonverbal cues a lot more than actual words, which is not necessarily the greatest thing because sometimes, if I'm upset with my boyfriend, just, being passive aggressive or rolling my eyes is not a good enough explanation or not a good enough indicator that I'm upset. and it just causes more problems. So I'm going to work on using my words more than my nonverbal communication, but also becoming more aware of the nonverbal cues that I send people. So the fourth one is the stress management dimension of emotional intelligence. I scored below average on that dimension in chapter 8, and I wasn't surprised because I tend to struggle with dealing with emotions properly, and I often do bottle things up inside when I feel that my emotions are irrational. So a lot of times if I notice a feeling that I shouldn't be feeling or frustration that I shouldn't be having, I'll push it aside, push it down, and try to ignore it because I feel guilty about having that emotion. So let's see. Okay. This video is going to end up being a little bit long. So the last assessment that I'm going to analyze was the chapter 10 assessment, and it made me realize a lot about my family and my relationships with my family. And here's a picture of my family to spice it up a little bit. So there is me, my dad, my mom, my 2 sisters, and my dog Dakota. So anyway, that chapter 10 assessment made me realize that my family has a lot of work to do with our relationships, and it's forced a lot of difficult conversations with my family, this assessment and that chapter, so I'm glad that it has. And next I'm going to reflect on 5 concepts that I learned in this class. So I would say that after evaluating the continuum of different listening types, or the different types of listening responses, I am comfortable with a big mixture of them. And if I had to pick 2 listening responses that I'm most comfortable with, I would pick silent listening and advising. And I've just sort of learned that I'm best with those things, so that's something that I'm going to focus more into for sure, because now I know that that's my best way of helping people. The second concept that I learned was how to boost self-esteem, and we sort of dove into that by doing research on different reputable or irreputable websites for self-esteem methods. And I really liked that one of the websites that I found taught me to use positive affirmations correctly, and how important it is to make sure that you're not using overly positive affirmations, so that you don't feel discouraged and actually depressed by saying things like, I'm a perfect person, because if you don't actually believe that, sometimes it'll manifest negativity. So that was important to learn. I also really liked learning about in the discussion post where we learned about Tina Fey's rules for improv in our career. I found it really interesting to take those pieces of advice. So a big thing that I learned is that it's important to make statements, instead of always asking questions and expressing uncertainty, just to show your confidence. So the fourth thing that I loved learning about was self-concept and how it is shaped and affects our communication with others. And that section in the textbook really had a relatable and relevant material to my relationship and the relationships my sisters have been in. So I was able to really reflect on that and apply that to my sisters' relationships. And the idea of a self-fulfilling prophecy has also come up several times in conversations that I've had with people. That was something that I really enjoyed learning about, and that was a concept that stuck with me a lot. And so the last thing there is that I also learned that it's not enough to simply be aware of the differences between others in cultures and their methods of communication, but we also have to interpret what their words and actions mean, since it's an unavoidable piece of the communication puzzle. So I really enjoyed diving deeper into the cultures of my 2 best friends, so my Latina best friend and my Persian best friend. So that was really cool. Okay, and I'm way over time now, but I'm very passionate about the things I learned in this class. And so lastly, there's 6 ideas that I'm going to apply to my professional and personal life. first one is the paraphrasing activity, and I just know my life is going to be a lot easier now that I've discovered this paraphrasing practice, because I think that even if I show others that I'm capable of paraphrasing what they're trying to argue with me, it'll show that I'm truly listening, and it will force me to actually listen too, because as much as I would like to believe that I am a great listener, I know that I'm capable of falling into tunnel vision with my arguments and becoming blind to alternatives and a little bit stubborn. So second, I'm going to try applying the social media log to my life. I'm going to try to do one, maybe bi-weekly or monthly, so that I can become more aware of my social media usage and make sure that I'm continuing to log on to social media with the right intentions. Next, I'm going to apply the perception checking assignment to my life, because I'm going to be able to, rather than automatically assume the worst case scenario, I'm going to use this method of communicating to help me potentially recognize how common tendencies and perception can shape our interpersonal communication and actually have a damaging effect. So I'm going to definitely avoid those tendencies to assume the worst case scenario, and definitely use the pattern of analyzing or responding in the right order, where you provide the right alternative answers for the person you're communicating with. And in week 8, I learned that it's actually important to rant, and it's okay. So that's something that I've actually practiced just yesterday, and I will continue to practice, that it's so important to share with people what you're feeling and not bottle things up. And the 5th thing is that I learned how to write a professional email correctly, so I'm going to definitely use that with Career Showcase coming up. I'm going to make sure that I am writing professional emails with those instructions that we have and what we've learned with that, so that I can come off as the professional that I am. And lastly, I'm going to become more aware of my surroundings and the nonverbal communication around me and in my personal relationships, and nonverbal cues that I give, because that assignment where we had to be aware of our surroundings made me realize that there are so many nonverbal cues that go right over my head. So I'm going to continue to be aware and actually, enhance my awareness of the nonverbal cues that I give off. So that's everything. I know I went a little over time, but now I'm going to show a couple more pictures. So this is me and my sister. I know I talk about her a lot, and I have another sister that I'll show a picture of. So that's my little sister in the middle. And my boyfriend is actually on my lock screen, but here's me and my boyfriend. And now I'm going to wake my sleeping child for the sake of this video. Oh, that's her. Yep, that's my little baby. She is just laying there sleeping in the bed. So yeah, thank you for watching this video. Sorry it went a little bit over time. Actually, a lot of bit over time, but I'm very passionate about everything. And yeah, thanks. Bye.